work. And now we're getting into the panel discussion of the day, which is about breaking the bias for migrant women. Now, this is a very important topic. And especially the International Women's Day, which was on 8th of March. That is an annual reminder for us to keep exploring the topics or the ideas of change in this area, which is so important. 50% of population is female, and if that 50% of population is not empowered to do the best that they can do, the whole world is not growing enough, and we are not going in a balanced way. So when we talk about balance, when we talk about gender diversity, we talk about inclusion. I think the first step of inclusion is gender balance, and that's my personal opinion. Obviously, other things do follow. You have race, we have so many hurdles to cross. Now, the focus of today's discussion becomes even more serious because when you're into a new country, you're a migrant. And then being a woman adds more hurdles to it. But here today we have four very successful women who have, in a way, broken the bias through their sheer effort, their courage, and their brilliance. And we are here to share their stories with you and talk to them how they did this. So I'll welcome our panelists and I'll quickly introduce them, and then we'll go into this discussion. 1 minute. So I'll just pin all the panelists so everyone can have a look at them. Yes, that's our panel. Welcome everyone. You can unmute, the panelists can unmute themselves. So I'll quickly introduce each of our panelists. We have already met with Nish, but for some new viewers, I'll reintroduce Nish. So Nish Pai is the head of learning experience at Mitre and has been in the learning profession for the last 20 years across three countries and six industries, helping people find their passion and purpose. An award-winning instructional engineer, certified organizational coach, executive leadership expert, and psychometric assessor, she strives every day to create safe spaces and celebrate growth and diversity and empower high performance. Welcome, Nish. You can give a hi to everyone so they know who you are. Yes, thank you. Now, next is Ashima. Ashima graduated in law from the University of Auckland, New Zealand in 2011. She successfully completed her professional legal studies from the Institute of Professional Legal Studies in Auckland, and she was admitted to the High Court of New Zealand in August 2011. Ashima then co-founded Legal Associates in 2014, and prior to that she worked with Kingston Chambers lawyers as a barrister and solicitor for 3 years. She specializes in property law, business sale and purchase, leases, commercial law, relationship property disputes, and employment law. Before joining Kenton State Chamber lawyers, Ashima has worked as a court registrar in Auckland Papakura District Court. She has gained a lot of insight in the court system and is a big volunteer in the community network. And a very important point also that Ashima is very helpful to all community organizations, does a lot of pro bono work, and very supportive to women, she herself being a woman entrepreneur. Thank you, Ashima, for joining us.
Thank you, Gary, for such beautiful words about me.
You deserve every word of it. And also I'll just add one personal note of why we have this selection of wonderful ladies here. So the spark of Nish is that she has crossed so many countries, crossed so many hurdles, and still becoming successful. And she's teaching the teachers, as it were. So good on you, Nish, on that. And Ashima has broken a bias in her own way because we all know law as a very male-dominated profession, and I'm sure it wouldn't have been easy for her. And then growing as a successful business woman and entrepreneur in that same profession has its own thing. So we'll hear from her on that. Next is Padma. Can we get a hi from you, Padma? Yay, thank you. So Padma Akula is currently the producer at Q Theatre. Padma Akula is a creative polymath and critically acclaimed multidisciplinary artist and designer for stage and screen. With a career spanning over 15 years, with over 90 productions under her belt, her practice ranges from artistic to administrative, reflective of her global influences, training, and experience. Her career highlights include working with large scale production houses both in New Zealand and in India. She has been a very important part of the Prayas Theatre Group and also has a deep interest in the education sector. Padma has also worked in the community a lot. She's the founder of Joy Mob International, Kuthu Nation, and co-founder of Artham Dance Company. Artistic endeavors committed to build communities through movement and shifting how we engage with arts. So thank you so much, Padma, for joining us. She's the beacon, the creative beacon in our team, and with wonderful ideas and a very positive person who keeps inspiring others. So thank you, Padma, and we'll hear from you today later. Yeah. Then we have Szeko. Shyamini Szeko. Is that correct pronunciation, Shyamini?
Shyamini Szeko, yeah.
Szeko, sorry, thank you. Shyamini is a National Learning and Development Manager at Tegel Foods. She's got over 20 years working experience across different industries and organizations in various leadership capacities. Shyamini is a champion for diversity and inclusion and belonging, weaving it all into her work. Being fair and equitable is at the heart of who she is. Breaking Bias, a program that Shyamini co-designed, won an award for the Global Awareness Initiative of the Year in the Employment Engagement category at the Employee Mobility Institute's 2020 Awards. Shyamini is a passionate change driver and is specially inspired to help people take their careers to themselves to unprecedented levels. Shyamini is a mother of 2 boys. When not in work mode, Shyamini can be found creating delicious meals for her family and friends and bribing her cat and dog with treats in exchange of snuggles. Wow, that's lovely, Shyamini. I'm so delighted to have you all here.
Thank you.
So let's quickly start the discussion with a few opening remarks. And then we'll have a general chat. And when we get into the discussion, I'll request everyone to unmute themselves, even our attendees, and then we'll have a free flow of conversation. So it won't be too structured. And please feel free to jump in, ask questions to any of our panelists. So it's more of a discussion. It's not speech after speech. So let's have that format. So maybe let's start with you, maybe Ashima. The key question for everyone, all our panelists, for starting is, what have been your story on breaking the bias in your professional front? Any one big moment where you felt that there is a bias happening, and how did you break that stereotype? So what was your number one challenge and how did you overcome that? Let's start with that. I'll give 3 to 4 minutes to each speaker and then we'll take a discussion. So over to you, Ashima.
Thank you. I want to know one thing, Gary. Why me first? Is it because my profession is so serious and the topic is so serious?
No, because your name starts with A.
Oh my. Yeah, it has been a challenging journey. I'm a lawyer more than 10 years now. When I started studying, I gave the birth to my son, and he was only 3 months old when I started my uni. And I was studying here for the first time. And it's completely different from what you have learned or what you have gone through in the university and back in India. So it was a bit tough, and I was the main thing which I felt in terms of, not the bias, I would say, but I used to get intimidated is because I was the only Indian in my whole 250 students. Oh. And then there was 1 or 2 Fiji Indians, 5% I would say would be Asians, and everyone else is white. So you can imagine, I started in 2006. And then at that time, when you're just the only Indian studying in the law profession, which is already male and white dominated. Yeah. So studying itself was a bit hard, but yes, thankfully I made good friends. And all those friends were white because I had no other option really, no other Indian to cling on and all get the comfort zone, as you were saying earlier, Nish. So it was a good, smooth journey, kind of. Not as smooth, but it's okay. I mean, I managed. I swim through it with the small child. When I became the lawyer, my son was 5. So he turned 5 and I finished my studies. And then I started my job. And getting a job here, being even after studying law, was not easy. Being an Indian, I think maybe one of the things. And then plus, they always look into the grades, because I was not like all the A pluses. I was an average B sort of grade. So I couldn't go into the, the Shortland Street top law firms. But then I thought, okay, let's start from the basic. Let's get into the court to see the other side of things as well. And then normally, when I went into the court, when I got the job as a registrar, I actually noticed so many registrars were law graduates at that time. And they all were, not just because they were some other migrant, belong from the other migrant community, but even the whites. It was very difficult to find a job in law.
Okay.
So that's fine. I mean, I got the job. I worked there for like good 6 months. And then luckily I got the job in a law firm. And even in the law firm, it was a Korean law firm. So most of them were Korean. It was just 2 of us were Indian. And then, but the employer was supportive. So we worked there for 3 years. And then because my husband is also a lawyer, so I'm also a lawyer. So we managed to open our own law firm in 2014. But then in 2014 was also a challenge in the sense because I was pregnant with my daughter. And then because we were working in a Korean law firm, they said, we were thinking, okay, once I deliver, I come back from to workforce, then we will open our own. But because the Korean law, our boss, he was not really wanting us to open our own law firm. So he told us, go now or never, sort of a situation. So I was 8 months pregnant and we were kind of pushed to leave that law firm and open our own. And within a month, I had to undergo what for my C-section and all that stuff. And I came back in a month's time, really, because it was my own new business, which I had to, take care of it with a small baby. I was like, oh my God, 2 children. And both the times I was gone back to my workforce or my career sort of a thing. But it went really well. I mean, yes, first year was roller coaster, but we won I won the Businesswoman in 2016, and then we won the Supreme Business Award. We got it at Indian Business Award in 2018. We started with 3 of us, and now we are 21. And we are still growing. We are still looking for more staff to add on to and we have all the different migrants and all different. So we have Filipino, we have Japanese, we have Chinese, we have Sri Lankans. So we thought, okay, whatever we have gone through, we don't want, at least we can be a good mentor because we don't want others to learn through the hard way. And we normally hire newly graduates so that we can train them, because I know it's not easy to get a job anywhere, everywhere they ask, do you have an experience?
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry. So is it okay now?
Yeah. So Ashima, I would want to ask you, that's a brilliant journey, and of course with so many challenges. What was one quality which you can credit yourself that helped you overcome all of these challenges?
Determination.
And don't be modest.
Determination. That is my strong point ever. Even, I mean, this is on a lighter side because I don't want to just say everything serious, because it is just to make it more lighter. Like, for example, I wanted to lose weight and I was weighing 83 kgs just by 2020. And now I'm 69.5. So I lost almost more than 12 kgs because of the determination. So this is just one of the things I'm just saying. But
it's an important quality. It's a very important quality. Determination and perseverance.
Very important. Is very important. Unless you're determined, people are there to pull you down. I have faced so many situations at times where, especially with the public speaking, you so many critics. Oh, know how to speak proper English. Oh, she struggled with the words. Those are because since English is a second language, it's not my first. Of course, we will struggle. But then saying that if you take the feedback as a positive critic and just learn from it and be determined to what you want to achieve, nobody can help you really. And I think that's what I have got it in this 10 years. And I still have like so many things planned and in pipeline, especially for this year. Which I can see it's taking shape slowly and slowly. We are only in the 3rd month of this year. If you just stick to your goals and be determined, you can achieve anything really.
Wow. That's a very good point to move on to our next speaker, and we'll come back to you, Ashima. So, Shyamini, over to you. What has been your one key moment to break the bias, which you can share with us?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a bit of a different angle on this question. So, because for women of color, the glass ceiling metaphor doesn't cut it. What we have is a concrete ceiling. And this is important.
I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because the experience of women of color are very different, and it's too often ignored. The concrete wall reflects the barriers that women of color face far more accurately. So the glass is tough. Yes, while glass is tough and you can shatter it, you can see through it to the level above, and you know that there is something to aspire to. But in the workplaces, our standard of professionalism, leadership norms, biases, emotional and mental exhaustion, and the lack of management support are just some of the ways individuals and organizations still uphold racism in the workplace. So there's a lot to break through because the systems, institutions, our cultures not built for women of color in mind. And navigating these environments can prove incredibly challenging. But there is good news. Concrete can still be cracked. It's not easy, but our biggest sledgehammer is making sure that we have a voice, that our voices are heard. So, like this opportunity that you're giving us today by us sharing our opinions, our worries, our stories, and our lived experience to be heard. And when we actually listen to them, we have the power then to start affecting change.
Yeah.
So we right here, sitting here, we're the role models for the next generation.
Yeah.
Look, bias is all around us, right? We face it in our own lives. We do it in our own ways. We have millions of bits of information that is thrown at us every day. Our brain, consciously or otherwise, we process it by first categorizing it into patterns. We look at gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, what are you wearing, what's your profession, your ability, your sexuality. We are stereotyping people all the time.
Yes.
So that's why it's actually really important, first of all, for us to reflect on our own hidden prejudices and how they show up in our actions, examine our biases, and then you break them.
Yeah.
So it takes courage, right? So I've had to have, it's a lot of courage so that you're not turning a blind eye to this realization. It takes courage to be vulnerable, for us here to share our stories, to engage in difficult conversation, to listen with intent and to compassion and to take action. So, my suggestion is, like in terms of what I have done is educating myself. It has been a powerful activity to study my own biases. Okay. So we are living in times of awareness. We continue to progress towards a more equitable world, but there's still so much to do. We've gained momentum, but we want to keep it growing towards a more healthy, connected, and equitable way. So as organizations need to recognize and value, everyone's multiple identities, our race, ethnicity, gender, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, all the different aspects, the intersectionality of what our experiences on our day-to-day basis. There are ways to show support. One of the ways is actually thinking of the barriers. So if I think about some of the barriers that I've heard, and I myself have said probably like the three categories, like it's not a problem. We say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Gender differences are not a problem. We view men and women equally. We've heard this all the time. Yeah. Of someone telling me, oh, Shyamini, no, we don't see color. We only see people. Really?
Long statement.
Okay. Shyamini, out of your work experiences, can you share any one particular experience where you felt yes, there was a bias? If you're comfortable sharing that.
I think this part that like this whole thing of that there's unconscious and conscious bias. I think the problem is when people are telling you that when I'm trying to explain to someone in the workplace that this is my experience, someone says, oh no, that hasn't happened. So I often now stop and say, no, it's my story, it's my experience, not yours. This is how I feel.
Correct.
it's when people say, oh, there's no benefit in talking about differences can only divide us, that's often the thing. Why are we people
trying to brush away the topic, brush away under the carpet, by saying
yes, or people would say, oh, maybe they might think I'm too sensitive, or my experiences might be minimized. Or what if I say something wrong, or inappropriate? What if I'm viewed as racist or sexist?
Okay.
And I think one of the things that keep coming up, and this is a lot of research that I've done within my current organization and more in my previous organization, where one thing that always came up is it's not safe to speak up. So what we really need to do is how can we create that safe space for conversation? Because that conversation is essential to take place. We must understand also that, coming across, and people need to understand that it's not one single act of discrimination or bias. It's a long history of cultural subjugation that has systematically advantaged one group over the other. So we all actually, I'm here because we all have a responsibility to make a better future and counter racism and bias.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that, Shyamini, sorry. And we'll just move on to the next speaker, Padma. But just one thing, what you said, that it's so important to have these conversations, because, I was just thinking the other day, there was a time when women were not allowed to vote. So there must be someone who actually started talking about it, that why a woman not being allowed to vote, and which we take it as a granted right today, and very rightly so. So yes, I think that's why it's so important to keep having those conversations. And so thank you for that, Shyamini. Padma, over to you next. So again, I was just giving that question again, any particular bias specific incident or experience that you felt in your professional journey, and how did you overcome that?
Before I go into that, Gara, I just want to address the voting part you just mentioned, because I was also looking into that a week ago.
Okay.
And don't quote me on this, but from the time the voting in general for men moved to women are also allowed to vote, I think it took about 30 to 40 years. But I'll go double check that. But it's a long time, Anyway, coming back to your question, to be honest, I don't know how to answer your question. But if I had to talk about how I navigated, I always just did what I wanted to do and didn't seek permission.
Okay.
I would just do it and then go inform people I did this.
Okay.
So that I did not let anyone influence my thoughts. And I was like, if this is what I want to do, does it intentionally hurt anyone? Does it unintentionally hurt anyone? Does it intentionally or unintentionally hurt me? No, I will just go do it.
Okay.
And then people would learn what I did through media or newspaper. So, for example, my parents didn't know I went into theatre until one day I was sitting in the living room and my brother was reading a local community paper, and he read my name and he looked up at me and he looked at the page and looked up at me. And he's like, how many Akulas could be there in Auckland, right? It's like, is this you?
Yes.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So no one needed to know what I was doing. I did not seek permission. For me, it was always my journey is my personal journey. I don't need to also tell other people saying this is what I'm doing. I would just do. For example, when I did my Koleveri flash mob, my father learned it through watching news.
Wow. Okay.
Right. And then he came to me and he said, someone did Koleveri flash mob in Auckland. Did you know? Did you see? And I'm sitting there going, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Then he looked at me and was like, was it you?
Yes.
I was like, yeah. So that's again, if I wanted to do something, I would find a way to just go and do it. And I don't know if that's the way I subconsciously navigated through things without asking for permission.
Correct. I think that's a very important point you said, that subconscious thing which has been said, especially I think in women, that they need to ask permission, check with your husband, check with your father, check with some male person in the family or in the workplace, and then do it. I think that's you're breaking a bias there. Yep. Thanks for that, Padma. We'll come back to our discussion. Opening remarks, Nish, on this?
I'm loving this conversation, right? Because number one, I think that's the power of these conversations. Any kind of racism, genderism, any ism can, hit you in a very isolating manner. There's something wrong with me. I am not good enough. This is my problem. And you internalize everything that you hear from others as their opinions. You make it your truth. And you become lesser and lesser. You dim your light and you dim your light, you dim your light. And there's a very beautiful word for it called code switching. Now, code switching is when a person believes that a majority group and the way they behave is the right way to behave. So the way I sound, the way I look, the way I think, behave is not right. So I stop being my authentic self. Okay. And I start behaving like the majority community because I align myself to that. And I think that assimilation is what I need in my life. So rather than going for a very equitable belonging, sense of belonging, where I am who I am, I belong to a mosaic of cultures and identities and behaviors, I start to go into a melting pot kind of behavior. I have to act like them, behave like them, think like them, talk like them. And there's a them and me then in my head, instead of an us. So I'm doing this language to myself, right? I'm giving the power to them. So for me, my journey has been for the past, because I moved from India, and India has its own challenges when it comes to gender behavior. So dealt with that the first 30 years of my life, moved to Dubai, and Dubai has its, migrant plus women plus Indian women nuances over there. Where even the human resources functions are, aligned to a passport-based pay structure. It's highly confronting. It's highly confronting. It's very open in your face. And then, so that was a different journey of my own, where I had to look at the systemic racism that was allowed to flourish and then make a choice for me and my young child and my husband and say, we don't want to be part of this. We want to go to a place that feels safer and more inclusive. So had my experience in India with gender and growing up in a highly conservative South Indian family and having to deal with my parents who were the most progressive individuals, but the community was not. So the constant confusion of who am I? Who am I? So my parents were like, you are you and you're beautifully you, go shine. And then there were people trying to pull you back into the community saying, you're too much. You're too much. This is not, for women, this is aggressive. This is not assertive. Don't run, you will become dark. Why are you so dark? On my wedding day, I was preparing for an ultra marathon. Within 2 days of my wedding, I was told, put on bleach. Put bleach on your face, you put fair on your birthday. So every time I look at Padma's post, by the way, for bridal makeup, and you do your bridal makeup so beautifully, Padma, I'm like, thank God for women who are there supporting other women in being as beautiful as they can, the way they look.
They don't need to whitewash them. Yeah, exactly.
So my own experience. And then when I came to New Zealand, it's a completely different experience for the last 5 years. Because I feel in New Zealand, it's not as overt and in your face. Any kind of ism is not in you. Nobody will come to you and say, you Indian woman. There's nothing of that nature. It's death by 1,000 cuts sometimes. It's those microaggressions, and every time you bring up the exactly what Shyamini said, when you bring up those microaggressions, there is what I call plausible deniability attached to it. Oh, it's in your head. It's in your head. It doesn't happen. You're too sensitive. You're too emotional. Oh my God! You're too angry. You're the angry ethnic girl.
Angry young woman. So basically, you are being termed as fake news. You are fake news then.
It's almost like it's like the Amitabh Bachchan in the 70s, right? You're like the female version of Amitabh Bachchan.
You're Janjeer, and you're dragging this metal chain everywhere. And there's this huge amount of anger that builds up in because the most basic human emotion is I want to be heard. So when people take away your voice, that's what hurts. So my movement, I think, and every time I've hung out with you, Gary, and we've worked on Migrant Careers Support Trust, every time I speak to women in leadership positions, to other migrants, the coaching sessions, my motto is, I have a voice, I have a choice.
Okay. Yes. Correct.
So,
That's a good point. Thanks, Nish, for your remarks. And I'll just put a next question to everyone and open for any panelists now to jump in. So, in this process, when you were, struggling or you were trying to, move on, did you seek guidance from someone? Was there any person who helped you? Or, it's basically this question is for the general public, that is it okay to seek help? And if yes, then how should you find support in such a situation? Any experiences you can share on this point? Yeah.
I think this really links back to Nish's presentation earlier as well. It's actually asking, and we really struggle with it, right? Culturally, we told don't ask. So I think a lot of it is actually working through your own inner dialogue. What is it that you say to yourselves and try to overcome that? So having that growth mindset about asking and seeking more information. So yes, your leader is very important, but if your leader is not there, who else? But you see, a leader doesn't have to be the one who's directly managing you. There are a lot of people within, and seeking those people who you can go and sit and get some mentorship. That's critical. And think outside the box, look beyond that circle. It's not about that title, as I say. It's not like I need to go and sit with the exec member to talk, but seek other women in the organization, other people in the organization, outside the organization. And that's why encouraging people to attend, forums like this, and having people reach out to any of us even.
And just to add to that, I've been lucky enough to have amazing mentors who are both male and female.
Yes.
Who've taken me under their wings, given me support, even when I asked or even when I didn't ask, see the potential in me and move me forward and give me the direction, both male and female equally.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very important to not forget that the men equally play the part. I'm not saying give them all the credit. I'm not saying put them in a pedestal. No, it's basic human. You being a good mentor. But don't forget that it's also important. We live in a society where it's equally men and women in the space. So the information and the learning capacity that you get from women are so different to when you learn from men as well. Or in that spectrum of gender fluidity, however they represent or identify themselves. And another part is when you're going and asking for help, I think this is very key, making authentic and genuine relationships.
Okay.
Yes.
You're not going and just saying, I need this from this person, hence I'm going to reach out to this person now, and then use and throw that person. There are people that I know in the industry I've known for 16 years. There's a reason why we continue to work together. There's a reason why we keep in touch. Like, for example, Gaurav, we've known each other for so many years, right? And just like with you, I know so many male and female and other people who I've known for years. It's because the connection is genuine. It's authentic, and it's a relationship that you build over the years. And it's genuine love and respect, and respect for your ethics, it's respect for your work ethics, and respect for how you present your work. Right.
Mutual respect, I think, a very important aspect you said. It should also not be that someone is taking a pity on you. It has to be mutual respect.
Yes. And also you respecting that relationship and cultivating over years, and nothing cynical or manipulate about it. It's very important that you don't use and throw people, and you're there for them as well. And just when Nish mentioned that to me earlier, it just hit on, because when I did my drawings, the people I support and the people they support, they were all in the same, they were all there, because I am like, if they're investing in me, I obviously need to be investing in them as well. It's not a one-way traffic. And I love the fact that I'm going, okay, this is good, because that's how it needs to be. It's not about just I. What can I learn from this person? What am I benefiting from this person? What am I benefiting from this relationship? I need to ask this person for help because this person opens doors for this. You need to think longer, wider, and cultivate relationships for long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Nish or Ashima, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, just adding to Padma's point as well. To be very honest, all my mentors have been men.
Okay.
I only have one mentor. Yeah, because of the industry maybe. Because I only had one female mentor in the court, and to be honest, that made my life really hell. That I had to actually switch over from Papakura Court to Auckland Court within
Okay.
those 3 months. I was like, no, I can't, because sometimes, yes, we are talking about women empowerment and everything else, but sometimes women can become your enemy as well. They can't see you progressing if you are at the kind of same level in the same work culture. That I have experienced in my court, not in law career, but just when I started, because we were there, like 3-4 of us, same law graduates, just got job as a registrar, and I could see that the mentor was women, and she couldn't see somebody's rising shining, maybe threatened about her own job. I really don't know.
But
I may add to that. It's because we limit the chairs at the table, Gaurav. We need to have more chairs, because you had more chairs at the table, then you're not fighting for the chair.
Correct.
Then we blame this female for, you know, and I hate this when people say like women are women's worst enemy. And I'm like, cut that crap.
But I wanted to say one thing that, sometimes I feel that maybe this is also part of our own bias. So why are we seeing them as women being competitive? Actually, everyone is competitive. Men is also are equally competitive.
Yeah.
So it could have been a male mentor also who could have been bad to you. But maybe that's again a subconscious bias. I think so. We should say that there was a X person or who was just competitive, and he didn't like you being there and growing.
An individual.
So I think that's also part of the bias that we grow with.
So in my journey, I think I was lucky enough that all the mentors were men, and they were really good to me, and they have taught so many things to me, which without any, I mean, I really agree, Padma, with your comment that it is all about the relationship. It's all about the give and take. It's not about, yes, I'm just there to take everything from them and not reverting back in any shape or form. It's all about the bonding, the kind of relationship you make with your leaders that helps you in your growth and then helps them in their growth as well. Because now I'm a leader means I'm training so many of my employees. Being a leader is not just giving the information. You learn so many things from other people. Every day they teach you so many things. So it's not like as a leader, I know everything. It's always a learning journey for a leader as well. And as a leader, we do make mistakes. I mean, nobody's perfect. So we are not born perfect. So if we make mistakes, like if I make mistake or anything, I don't feel shy to go and say sorry to them. Oh, sorry, this is what I have done wrong. I think we can come up as a team and correct it and do it in a different way. So that's a leader should be modest as well. It's not like you are a leader, so you are just like a boss and you pretend to be a boss and you are just there not making any mistakes and just don't say sorry about those things. So you have to be modest in whatever you are doing. So relationship building again is a very good point, Padma, which you have raised. It's very, very important with your subordinates and with your leaders in both.
So just Nish, if I want to ask you a related question on this, on seeking guidance. So because you have been in part of creating that framework of learning within your current company and earlier companies as well. 2 points I want you to throw some light on. A, how do you find support within your working environment? And B, if there is no support in your working environment, how do you create a parallel support framework for yourself?
Very interesting, right, Gigi, because Gary, because we're trying to address this in our leadership development program as we speak. So as I said, sometimes we put all our eggs in one basket. So we believe we belong to a team, we have a leader, so that leader is our be all and end all. That leader will invest in us, they will grow us, they'll coach us. And yes, in that survey that I showed you from Mitre 10, leaders came up as your number one support system, as your number one champion. But not all of us are lucky enough to get those growth-oriented, lovely leaders. So what do we do then? So what we're trying to do in our leadership development is to, as people and culture functions, it's our responsibility to create a safe space for our employees. And that safe space is to form these leadership circles where leaders across all hierarchies can freely mingle with each other, and they find a safe space to share their ideas, their challenges, their queries, and they get that peer-to-peer support. There's too much of this going on. There's not enough of this. You know, when we talk about competition, we're talking about taking somebody's seat. We're not talking enough of collaboration, which is the power of the community. Because that's where the joy is. That's where the real benefits are. If I have learned, it's because my peers have invested greatly in my growth. I have struggled with the project. I put my hand up. 3 people have jumped in and helped me. I've been having a personal, emotional turmoil. You know, something is going on in back home with my dad's health. My peers have jumped in. My teams jumped in, and they've held me. So you can't let go of your network. It's not very linear into I want that seat at the table, and you totally get that. That competition, right, is what is killing us. It is killing that spirit that we need to get. So that's number one. Number one, the spaces that the people and culture teams and we as leaders can create for our people. Second bit is I've never looked within the company only for my growth.
Yes.
Because I have looked at my friend circle in the neighborhood, my gym, if I go to it, as a story.
Yeah.
I do get to it. You know, and the industries, you know, conferences, seminars, webinars, you know, go and seek out proactively like-minded people. And I don't mean by color. I don't mean by ethnicity. I don't mean by gender. People who think like me. Who I have you know, cognitively, they're my buddies, they're my soulmates. And I don't care where they come from as long as they're going in the same direction. You know, they know me, they understand me. So, and I've found plenty of people of that sort, you know, who are ready to invest in that thought leadership with you.
Okay.
May I just add, like, I love the fact that you explained that how people jumped in and helped you, right? But I would just like to add that it's the goodwill that you've earned, Nish. That's also people forget. What you put out is what you receive back.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like cultivating that genuine relationship. It's not like always putting up your hand and then always asking for help. When someone else has struggled, I'm sure you offered, right? So when they're offering back, it's the goodwill just coming back to you.
Yes.
I love it. Karma is always my favorite.
So,
always my favorite philosophy.
I just on that note, I would also request anyone in the in our audience team, if they want to just jump in, and please, if you want, please switch on your cameras so we can also see you, and you can unmute yourself. And we have another 15 minutes to go, so now is the time to jump in and ask any questions or even share your experiences if you want, you know. So while we do that, you've covered the point of having support outside your work environment. Anyone else on that, Shyamini, Padma, how, or you know, Ashima, how can you create that support outside your work environment? I think that's also very important. Shyamini? Padma, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's also important for us to surround us with people who are smarter than us. I recognize that you don't know everything, and then go reach out to people. Hey, I don't know how to do this. Would you be willing to have a cup of coffee with me? You know, but you could ask that in several ways, and never hesitate to reach out to people. But before you reach out to people, do your research, understand who this person is that you're reaching out to, and never waste their time. You know, so if you want them to show up, you need to show up as well. And show up extra. And do your research and turn up. If you're going to take their time, go prepared with your questions, go prepared with like what you can offer them back, not like in an ugly manipulative barter system, but you need to know what you bring to the table as well. And if you bring nothing to the table, that's also fine, but just be aware of it.
And it's peeling it back, right? It's, you know, for me, one of the things that I've learned to say, what's the worst thing that can happen? They would say no, you know? So having that understanding of connecting is so important. We're so much in a text, email, social media sort of thing. It's about actually having a more meaningful conversation. It's funny because, you know, I've known Nish more in a professional setting through LinkedIn, through conferences, and I saw her name pop up in one of the community pages. And that's exactly how I connected with her. I go, hey, a bit random again, you know, Padma, and ask my random questions. I'm like, oh, by any chance do you live here? And she goes, how do you know this? But it's connecting and then finding, so hey, yes, can I have that coffee? But sometimes it's also acknowledging that some people might come to you and not know how to ask the question. And so to give them that space to help them, uncover that. And when they feel safe, they're able to ask, because sometimes it is hard for that person to make that first move anyway. And if they've come forward, to just allow a little bit of that space for them to be able to articulate what it is you want, if not helping them articulate it.
And it's also important to build that relationship as well.
Yes.
Because I remember going and having this also at work, I initiated this contact with this person who works in another different company, really admired his work. And I reached out to this person, and my first meeting was purely understanding him, connection, talking about me, talking about him. And I walked away so pleased, and I come back to my office and they were like, so what did you get? Did you get this project? Did you get this funding? What have you negotiated? I'm like, this was a first meeting. I am just getting, I have to build trust.
Yes.
It's on me to build trust. I have to build this relationship. I might be able to receive something maybe tomorrow or 5 years later or never, but that's okay. You still made this genuine connection with this person, and I might be in touch with this person for the next 10 years, and you and I may not have mutually benefited, but there's mutual respect and admiration for their work, and that's success for me regardless. I've made this new connection.
So just one more thing, if things get tough, and sometimes you may not get that support system either in office or maybe sometimes not even in your life, what do you do then? Do you really depend just on yourself? What would be your advice? Maybe let's start with Nish and then we'll go to everyone.
Thanks, Gary, because I think this is an important point to consider when we're talking about seeking support, reaching out to others, finding our community. All of that requires a basic belief in your value.
Okay.
That's the starting point. So it's very easy for us to dole out advice, right? Oh, go build your community, power of community, go talk to 20,000 people, send that email, go catch up for coffee. But then all of that hinges on one particular fact. I look at myself and I see a person of value. I see a person who's worth investing into. I'm capable of more. And I need to have that self-talk first. It's not easy to reach outside if you've not reached inwards.
Yes.
And that reaching inwards and that conversation sometimes you have to be like a frog with mud in your ears, because there'll be plenty of people telling you why you're not good enough. I feel when we look at the world around us, whether it's media, whether it's popular cinema, whether it is our own community, friends, relatives being at the highest of that list, plenty of people trying to pull you down. So as they're trying to pull you down, if you've got mud in your ears, there's a particular amount of self-confidence you can build. You get that little meditation time to say, I'm worth it, I'm enough. That journey of I'm enough is the first step. And otherwise we'll suffer from this, what they call the imposter syndrome, which is not relegated to any particular ethnicity, gender, race, sexuality. Everybody has it in good measure. But when you have 3 to 4 minority things added onto you, you're a woman of color, you're a woman of a particular country, then you're a migrant, so the immigration status comes over here, and the fact that you're never going to be seen as a local. So there are 4, it's a quadrant jeopardy. It's not even a double, triple, it's so what do you do in that situation is you have to give yourself that time to put mud in your ears, work on yourself, and then be ready to jump out.
Okay. So we have one, hand on. Georgia. Okay, Padma, you want to add?
And Georgia, won't be long. Just to add on to the Nish, Gaurav, when you have, like, for example, in a company, you say, we have all these policies in place. We have this person you can report to if this is sexual harassment, if this is racial harassment, this is whatever harassment. But what have you done to empower the staff to be able to access the procedures or facilities that you have in there? Do the staff feel confident enough to access the support system that you put in place? You can say, I have these procedures, we have this person you need to talk to, this is the person you need to talk to. So that's also what Nish is, referring to. We can talk about, you need to do this, but then how have we empowered this one particular single person to be able to reach out to ask for help, right? And the other quick thing I wanted to mention is, before we moved to New Zealand, when I say we, me as my family, we lived in several other countries outside New Zealand. But in New Zealand, it's the first time I heard the term POC, person of color, right? And I was like, my first reaction was like, what does that even mean? Right? And person of color, because where I come from and where I've studied predominantly outside India and outside New Zealand, people of color were the norm. And New Zealand was the first country where I moved into. There was this term called person of color, and I'm like, what does it mean? So that the other person is the person of non-color? And the whole understanding of what that does mean, and that's so. And it's also, I think, at some point you start putting that on yourself, going, oh, I am a female. Now I'm a female of color. Now I'm a female of color in arts. And it's like. It's like sometimes
it's a downward funnel. Yeah, you're going into that.
And you're putting it on yourself. And sometimes it's like just having to dust off and move forward.
Okay, Georgie, you wanted to say something. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Just firstly, thank you, ladies. This has been so insightful. I've really appreciated hearing your experiences. I'm a Kiwi, the only white girl in the room by the looks of it.
Representation.
Don't worry, you also have some color. Yeah, that's okay.
And I've spent 13 years living in London, so I guess I've got that experience of being a migrant, but being a white migrant in a white culture, and so my experience was very different. I was very accepted. And I guess my position, I come from, I work with organizations to help build great cultures. And so my question comes from a kind of cultural lens and organizational perspective. I've heard you guys talk a lot around psychological safety and building, people with growth mindsets so they can have these conversations. And I guess my question is just, what are those kind of, are there any tips you guys have for us white people to the everyday practices? How can we kind of demonstrate inclusion specifically for migrant women in New Zealand?
That's a very good question. I think everyone should answer, give some inputs. All the experts should do that. Yeah,
Okay.
It's at
the decision-making table, Georgie. I think you've just demonstrated this has been advertised, but it's always the same sort of people, the ones who really need to listen. So I would say how to be inclusive is, am I really listening to what's happening? What are people asking for, and not making the assumptions? It's just, that's what people can do a lot more of, I think.
Yeah.
Or listening. Okay. Ashima, you want to add something to that?
No. I was just telling you, Gary, I want you to answer this first.
Me? Okay. I think one point which actually came in this discussion itself, I think is very important. Two things. One is have more chairs on the table. I think that is so create more opportunities for women. That's so important, and to acknowledge the fact, like I said, they're 50% of our population, and how the society has put pressures on them, like how one of our attendees was saying that she's been a mother for nearly 8 years and she feels that she's not done anything, and I was like, you've done agile management, so there's so many soft skills, and these days soft skills are so much more important actually than hard skills to be successful in work life. So just appreciating the fact and more accepting, especially if you talk about organizational structures, the HR structures need to change big time. The HR departments accept only a certain kind of CV with a certain kind of skill set, with a very regimented structure. So that agile thinking has to start from HR as well, so that you provide more employment opportunities to women and be able to make them do the best that they can do in their certain skills. So I think according to me, that's just a starting point.
Yeah. And I just want to add on to that, Gary, very good point about this acknowledgement. Acknowledgement and being seen is, so those two things are very, very important. Yes, we are working hard towards whatever we are doing. But if we are not acknowledged or not credited to the work we have done, in any case, your self-confidence just goes down the tunnel. And
Yes.
it's
Yes.
difficult. Then you need your friends, your family,
Yes.
people to really push you up. Yes, we say, okay, believe in yourself and all that. But unless you really feel that from within, you really can't come out of that tunnel. So you need that acknowledgement in every stage, every step, no matter whether it's a big step or a small step. You need other people to really acknowledge of what you are doing, what
Correct.
sort of you're putting in. Like Gary, as you're saying, so your listener is a mother of for 8 years. Oh, she's doing a brilliant job. It's not easy to being a mother.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
train your children up to become the good citizens. It's not a joke. It's not a simple job. But that acknowledgement, if everyone start giving her the acknowledgement and credit of what she's doing,
Yeah.
so she feel more confident. I don't think it will ever come into her mind saying, "Oh, I'm just a mother." It's not. It's a big deal. So
So I can say on that front that I've been just a marketing manager for 6 years. So it's just the way you put it, because I've not helped anyone except myself for past 6 years, but at least you helped a family, raise a family. So it's the way we put, actually, not you, the society puts things, on what you are doing. Yeah. Okay.
Raji, I think,
just to
sorry, Padma.
Yeah,
Raji, I think the fact that you asked this question is the most important first step.
Yes.
So many times, right, when I have faced this, where I'm, and Shyam mentioned this a little earlier, we are giving an example of our lived experience. That experience has been an uncomfortable one. It comes from a place of where the intention might have been amazing, but what we are seeing or experiencing has been uncomfortable. And as I'm saying it to a person of non-color, is that what we're going with? Okay, let's go with that. person of non-color, there's an immediate dismissal. And the very fact that you're asking, what's my role? What can I do? What would you tell me? You're coming to the conversation with me. You're in this with me. That itself is so reassuring.
Yeah.
That, I'm not being spoken to, I'm being spoken with. A huge relief. The first thing I think is, as all immigrants we face, when we look at the political rhetoric, when we look at the stuff that we see around us in conversations, is there is this feeling from the majority of the population that we need to be grateful to be in New Zealand, so we need to lump it. And that sentiment gets repeated so often, it becomes the unsafe space. So
yes, sorry? To the migrants, yes. Yeah. Okay.
I thought somebody said something. Sorry. So yeah, that becomes really unsafe, because when you say to me, be grateful you've come to this country and we allowed you into this country. So whatever we dish out, shut up and take it. So that's the underlying message I get from multiple agencies. And that is hugely disempowering and disenfranchising. And so I have to fight harder to get that voice.
Yes. Okay, very important point, and that's actually a very crucial point, not only for any particular gender but across the migrant population. That there's this unconscious gratefulness you have to show. So whatever comes your way, just accept it. So I think, yes, we need to challenge that notion also. Now, just bearing the time in mind, I think I'll just one last thought. I will request everyone to.
Sorry, Gary. I just want to quickly mention this to Georgie.
Yes.
I think it's also important to acknowledge that you being a white female, there's only so much you can look through. The lens is very different. And as long as you can acknowledge that, you know what I mean? So, and unfortunately, there are no solutions all the time. And that's okay to come to the point like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. And that is when you hand it over to a person who can handle it. So, for example, if I find a gap in the art for POC LGBT community, right? So I won't be like, or rather, I never be like, okay, I'm going to do these things for POC LGBT community. I would find a POC LGBT person, give them the permission that and it's not even like giving them the permission, it's like giving them the platform. I take that word back.
Empowering them.
Yeah. And I giving them the platform, I give them the resources. I say, I don't even give them the idea. I say, you do what you want to do with this platform now. And that is acknowledging that I do not have that lens. I do not know what this specific community needs. So hence I'm going to make this platform for a person who knows what their community needs. And that's acknowledging that my lens is limited.
Yes.
And in certain places, my lens as a POC female is limited. And I'm me acknowledging that and handing it over and making a platform for somebody else.
Beautifully said, Padma.
Very beautifully said. Yes. Because we all have our own lens. We all are limited in our own ability.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, Georgie. It's a fact.
It's a fact. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And you're so right, Padma. We need to acknowledge that, each one of us, it's not only for you, George, it's each one of us. And, if we want to, for example, within the migrant space as well, if we want to help the Latino community, if we want to help the Chinese community, we have to reach out to them and ask them, what's important for them. What's important for us will be different from what's important to them.
Yeah.
So
and
I think
also getting the important amount of cross-section. I do not represent every female Indian POC. I cannot.
Yes.
So you need to get different voices, because you'll have different political voice, you'll have different religious voices, you'll have different whatever, how I raise my daughter voice. But it's so important to get cross sections within that, because at any place I have to be, it's like a double whammy, it's a double-edged sword. I also know when I'm in a place that I represent all female South Asian, but I also know that I don't represent all female South Asian. It's this constant battle.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I don't represent. What I do does not mean Nish needs to be responsible for what I do. But I also know that what I do does reflect on Nish or another South Asian female in the space. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Carrying burden of 1 million people on you, like 1 billion people.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my Lord.
Sorry,
Sorry, handing it over to you.
Georgie, does this answer your question? Can we move on?
Thank you. Yeah, that's really, thank you very much, guys.
I think you have enough answers, more than what you wanted. Okay. So just one last thought, and then we'll wind up on this. Let's end on a positive note. I want all of our experts to just say a few lines on what they think has changed over the years in a positive manner, and what would a gender bias free environment look like in their workspaces or in their industries. Let's start with maybe Ashima, and then we'll move on to it.
I was just thinking about it.
You've been quiet for some time, so yes.
See, the gender bias free environment would be like, I'm just not the work related. I'm just saying, then my daughter can just go and do whatever she wants to do without any pressure ever.
Okay.
That's what I think. I will see. Being an Indian woman, we still do have certain pressures which we go through on the daily basis, which we still think about it, social pressures, family pressures, so like how Nish was saying, like, even if we go to India now just for a visit, we go under those sort of pressures. So for me, just to think about, okay, completely free, gender-free, completely free from all those things would be like, okay, just do whatever, like how Padma do, and the family gets surprised. So for me,
I'm not sure if that's what I would recommend. That's what I do. Just
so,
a disclaimer there.
You can get your daughter to be in touch with Padma. She can be a role model then.
She's only 7 for now, but then when she grows, I'll send her to you to get some.
Okay, Bhagwan.
Okay.
And for me, it's like most important thing, or which I have seen, especially in law, is the changes. It's been 10 years, and I'm seeing it. Amount of people have started appreciating that yes, women are also becoming, more and more women are getting into this profession, and they're paying the kind of equal sort of a respect to them, and appreciating their individuality and their opinions about whatever the matter or whatever the case they are handling. This is what I have seen in law, which is now changing from the time when I was studying.
Yes.
And hoping and I wish that this thing will keep on growing, because of course we women, if you can imagine, yes, women itself has a good voice to really fight for it. And if the women become a lawyer, so you can imagine that's an added feather to their rights.
Okay.
So yes, I have seen that change in this, at least law profession, where more and more women are coming up, they're more spoken about, and they're more credited and more seen.
Okay, lovely. We'll move on to Shyamini.
I think there's been leaps and strides, right, of what's happening. So there's a lot of awareness, and it's now that action part that's really required. It's not the nice to have. So there are organizations that are catching up, but there are more of us in influential roles with voices, but using it, and encouraging it. So yes, I definitely think, on a positive note, I've been here for about 20 years now. It is a different New Zealand, but we need to keep talking about it and making it okay to talk about it. And what is gender free, I guess, for me, it's not having this conversation, not having the need to come together to discuss this. Is when when we're not thinking, oh, what's the target, how many people do we need here, how many women do we have, that when we can stop having those conversations, that's when we are okay.
When we normalize it.
Normalize it,
Normalize it, being woman in a workplace is normal, and equal workspace. Yes, lovely. Yeah. Okay, Padma.
I'm just going to take a step back and going back to the culture part that Nish was talking about, is culture don't make people make the culture. Right? So understanding that, and if I need to really strip it back and you go further back, it starts at home. And we're talking about workplace, but who are these people in the workplace? These are people who have normal lives, who have a family at home, and they have a job to go to, right? So it's like being your authentic self, where you, like, how you are at home, how you are in a social setting, how you are at work, all of that needs to change. It's just not one place, it's interconnected. So for example, one of the simplest example I would say is when someone comes to your house, do you go make tea, Gaurav, or do you ask your wife to make tea?
I make tea. She makes
good job.
Tea.
I can say, Gaurav, you do make good tea, but you know what I mean? It's it starts from there. It's that simple.
Yes.
And in a workplace, when you're asking somebody to take minutes, why is it automatically you look at a female in the table to take minutes? And it's little things like that. So it starts from home. It starts from how you treat your family, and how your children see how you interact with the other gender. And then when they go to the workplace, they imitate that.
Correct.
So I think for me, rather than just talking about workspace in general, it starts at home. Just like they say, charity starts at home.
Change starts at home. Yes.
This conversation starts at home, and the pressure is on both the parents. Be it a mother family, or a mother-father family, or a father-father family. It starts at home. How do you have this conversation at home, and how does it translate at workplace? And another part is, we like it or not, the person who has more voice needs to jump onto this bandwagon. So we like it or not, person who has more voice is usually middle-aged white men in New Zealand. So for change to happen, they need to be talking about this as well. And it's a trickle-down effect. So all of the conversation starts basic, I think, at home.
Okay. Nish, last thoughts?
When you asked me the first time I read that question of, over the years, has it changed? My immediate thought was, over the years, I have definitely changed. Because I think one thing that happens, and I keep going back to how did I find my voice? And I have a very distinct voice right now. And very interestingly, it's happened in my 40s.
Okay.
In my late 30s and in my 40s, suddenly I've given myself permission. So what has changed over the years? I have changed over the years. I have become very clear about what I want in what manner do I want it? And I almost say to myself, if respect is not being served at the table, I will leave that table.
Yes.
I give myself permission now not to take shit from others.
Yes.
Previously,
Brilliant.
there's something wrong. I would, like I said before, I would internalize it. So that's number one. What's changed?
Yes.
What's changed within the society? I think from overt we become covert. If that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I don't have to fight it in as many public spaces as before. It's no longer go sit at the back of the bus kind of a situation. But does it mean it has completely gone away from public discourse and interactions? Of course not. You still have a particular politician coming during smack at the beginning of the lockdown when the whole world is suffering from New Zealand and saying, go back home. Go back home. So there is still that, violence which you face in the external world. So but then there are a lot of people who will sort of say it in very tiny little ways, saying, if you don't have this and if you don't have this, if you're not a cultural fit, which is why my aversion to the word cultural fit. We want people who don't fit in, because that's when the adaptability and the flexibility of an organization flourishes. And final thought on this. To move our conversation, a gender-free environment, to move our conversation from equality to equity. And this comes up many times in conversations, and it deserves to be said every single time. We shouldn't be talking about equality. We should be talking about equity, access to resources, access to opportunities, access to choices. Because not everybody deserves a seat at the table.
Yes.
Male, female, otherwise. We need to work for it. We need to deserve it. And that is by equity of choices. So
equity and merit, you mean, should be the ideal situation?
The ideal. I mean, just because I'm a woman, I don't want 50%.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's really, wow. I think this discussion is something which we can keep going on, and it's so fantastic, and it's so engaging. I hope we have many more sessions like this. But unfortunately, we have run out of time, and we have to say bye here. So thank you again to all our experts, Nish, Ashima, Shyamini, Padma, and our lovely audience, Georgie, Selena, and everyone else. Thank you so much for joining us. This session will be on YouTube, and you can watch it. Please share it. Let's make the voice reach at the right places. I think that's also very important. So thank you so much. I would like to thank our sponsors as well, the Indian High Commission, Lotto New Zealand, and our corporate partners, Legal Associates, Kiviana Immigration, and CC Training Academy. These are all our partners who help us deliver these events and bring everyone together. So thank you so much. Keep following our website, migrantcareers.org.nz, for many more such workshops in the future, and we keep bringing you experts to talk on different aspects of your work-life career. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much,
I just want to
everyone.
say, Gaurav, thank you for this platform, Gaurav, and thank you for your continuous work for the migrant workers in New Zealand. So thank you for, I know this is your brainchild. So.
Thank you, Padma.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav.